Hi, and welcome to the Prime Component System tutorial. The component system is what we use in MTS to define the gameplay for a specific region of the game world, or perhaps even the entire game world. We do this by creating subgames, which we attach components to, and components allow us to specify things like the region of the world in which this behavior applies to, or things like events and the script behavior which is triggered by these events. Now, we use the component system when we define the things like the subgames and the components from the main Prime admin panel. Now, we're mainly interested here in the game tab. Now, if we go over to the game tab, you'll see we have things like the component types right here, and we have component instances, and finally, we have subgames, which is the most important tab. It is what we're going to be focusing on in this tutorial because it allows us to define the subgames and the components which define the behavior. Now, if we just go here, we will see a list of subgames that we have so far in the system. Now, as you can see, we don't really have a lot at the moment, but never mind, because we can use the links over on the left to add new subgames, and there's also a backlink down the bottom there, right there. Now, if we go to add subgame, we can add a new one. And here we can add a game name. I'll just call this demo subgame. And I can also specify a description. And if I click submit down the bottom once I'm done, I can then create a subgame right there. Now, as you see, same list as before, but here we have the entry. Now, on the right, we can use remove to delete the subgame, but we won't do that. And we can also click edit to alter the information that we entered before, such as the name, the description, but we're happy with that, so I'll just leave that. Okay, there's also the all-important view data link. This allows us to see a list of components attached to that subgame. So if I go ahead and click this right here, I can then see that we have we have all of the fields here, but we have no actual component specified yet. As before, we have the add links on the left, and we also have the back link here. Now, if I add a new component here, I can see on the types there's a list of different component types. Now, these are more like templates or blueprints. What you really are doing is adding component instances to your subgame, which you can then have as many of as you like and specify the actual data fields for specific to that subgame. Now, amongst this list of wonderful types here, the most important, I think, out of all of them is possibly region, which allows us to specify the region ID, which you can create in something like Forge, our world editor. And this is what's used by all the other components and the subgame as a whole as the basis for. Once I've specified the region using the component, I can use the enter or the exit subgames to specify scripts that are called when the player enters or leaves, and even using the subgame component, specify a script which is called when the player is in the subgame as like an update loop. You can also use things like the interact and interact fail to specify what happens when the player uses the interact control when they're inside that subgame region. And finally, down at the bottom there, auto interact is used to specify what happens when two actors collide and the resulting script that is called in that region. So I'm just going to go ahead and create this region component. I'll call it demo region, click submit, and here we can see a list of fields for that component. Now, the first one is the all-important region value, which is the ID of that region, which we will use for this subgame. So in this case, it's just going to be 1. There's also the string here, which is used for all components. So it's kind of like a description. So I'm just going to enter here, demo subgame region. Finally, there is a priority. Now, the priority is used for when two subgame regions overlap. The one with the highest priority will be used. Now, if I click submit down here, I can then create this component. And here you can see, this is my demo subgame. And here I have my component of type region. The name is demo region. And here are my fields. Now, you'll see over here on the right, I have edit and clear. Now, clear will clear the region, the field, sorry. And edit can be used to put the data back in. And as you can imagine, you can also use edit for existing data if you want to change it, but I don't. Now, this doesn't really do a lot at the moment, so let's add another component to actually add some functionality. Now, I'll add a enter subgame here. I'll just call it something like, enter demo subgame. Now, here I can specify the faction of the player, which this will work on. If the player is not of this faction, then this component won't be used. So I'll just put 1 here. Again, I can use these string fields to add descriptions. And here, below this field, is the all-important script value, which is the script ID, as noted in the database script table, which is the script that will be called when the player enters the subgame region. Just enter another description there. Okay, so I'll click submit here. There we go. Now we have 2 components. Now what this basically will do now is if I am in the world, I'm in the first region, and if this script will be called if my player is of this faction type and assuming the subgame has priority. And that's a nice sample subgame. And that's about it for our tutorial.